So today's podcast guest is Pinnock. Dale is a 7 Sunday Times bestseller. He's the author of 20 books in 23 different languages. He's a nutritional heavyweight and my good friend. This is an exceptional podcast. It's one that is absolutely critical that you must listen to. It's full of great information and I hope you enjoy. So, Dale, hi. How are you doing?
Very well, very well. It's good to join you here.
I know.
You know what? We've talked about doing something like this, about you interviewing me for like about 5 years, haven't we?
I know.
We've been threatening to do this for ages.
I know. And now I feel like we have so many conversations, probably what I would have interviewed you about years ago, I probably won't do these days because obviously it changes all the time and I see you all the time as well. So for anyone who doesn't know, Dale is a good friend of mine and you're a great ambassador for Elle, Sera. You're someone who's been there from very inception, somebody who has really helped me guide how the product looks today, how the information we give out about the product, and you're just a terrific ambassador for it as well. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, it's amazing to see it flourishing now, and you know, the results that people are getting. Ultimately, that's the thing, and that's the beauty with some of these botanicals. Obviously, for people that don't know, I mean, I talk so much about nutrition, but my second degree was actually in herbal medicine, so I am a medical herbalist. Yeah. And it can be such a powerful intervention. I mean, I think still in some circles it's viewed as being something that's a little
like
bit
quackery,
woo, but it is far, far, far from it. You know, you think like there's lots of plants that can interact with our physiology. Yeah. If there wasn't, people wouldn't smoke weed or get stung by stinging nettles. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
They're often overlooked for their power. Yeah. So to actually see the results that people are getting and seeing herbs really kind of doing their thing to such a fantastic degree is amazing.
Oh, it is amazing. And the other thing is people go, well, you don't need supplements. You get it from your diet. Well, I don't know the last time were having Peruvian maca in your diet or Tribulus terrestris. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, this is like, people get them mixed up. They go, oh, I'd like to try your vitamins. I'm like, it's not a vitamin. And people don't actually know the difference between vitamins, adaptogens, essential fatty acids,
with
things like that.
It's quite a tricky one because it is vague terminology. It was terminology that originated from Russia, particularly when one of the Russian sports teams were starting to use Eleutherococcus senticosus, which is the Siberian ginseng that's in Elle, Sera.
This is pre the doping that they all do now.
Yeah. So this is a long time ago, and essentially the most accurate meaning that we've managed to glean from the term adaptogen is that it helps you to adapt to stressors. Obviously, still that's very vague terminology, but certainly from a very reductionist kind of physiological view, what it seems to do, particularly Eleuthero, particularly the Siberian ginseng, is it actually caps the amount of cortisol that you have in circulation. Yeah. It doesn't take stress away. God, if only it did. Yeah. What it does is it minimizes the physiological impact that stress has on you when you're going through prolonged periods of stress, be that related to hormonal changes, be that related to your life falling apart, whatever's going on.
Traffic, red lights, just getting up in the morning.
All of the little minor embuggerances that line up throughout day-to-day life. You start to release cortisol, and cortisol can send your blood pressure up. It can send your triglycerides and cholesterol up. It can cause you to gain weight around the abdomen. Yeah. All of these things that will slowly destroy your health. That's why stress is so damaging. Adaptogens limit the amount of cortisol that is in circulation, so it reduces the physiological implications of the stress. And then the other benefit with Eleuthero, and which works beautifully with maca, by the way, is that it enhances utilization of glucose. So it means that you can take up more glucose and make more energy out of it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So there you go.
No, but it is true. And then you I say this to lots of ladies in our inbox, they don't get to that fight or flight level. A lot of women are like strung out. Again, I talk about the invisible mental load. I was talking to you about it before, about the stresses on women. They have so much more going on in their head. I think, that was one of the reasons I wanted Siberian ginseng in there, is because it's a fantastic adaptogen. And I don't think there's enough spoken about it. And a lot of people use caffeine, for energy production. Great, but
it's a false economy, unfortunately.
It is a false economy, and you do get that crash, whereas with Siberian ginseng, you just don't get it. There's also other benefits. It's really good to support your immunity, and it came out great against the herpes virus. It really reduces that and reduces the severity of an outbreak as well. Yeah. So I think plants and adaptogens have some unbelievable qualities to them and aren't used enough, really. And it is seen as a bit of quackery sometimes.
Until you start getting... The thing is, I mean, it's certainly in the UK, we've got an amazing traditional herbal system, but it's always been delivered based around traditional prescribing, like talking about... Obviously, adaptogens, quite a scientific term, but in old herbal terms, we're talking about things like galactagogues and amenagogues and tropho-restoratives.
For anyone listening, I don't even know
most people, like galactagogues, those are things that encourage the flow of breast milk.
Right.
Amenagogues are things that encourage menstruation.
Right.
Tropho-restoratives. This is, by the way, old terminology that doesn't actually mean anything.
Anymore.
That doesn't have the scientific basis. This is what I'm talking about, like our tradition comes from, and this is why people see it as quackery. But you go to countries like Germany and Holland, where herbal medicine is practiced in a form called phytotherapy.
Yeah.
This is essentially pharmacology. Yeah. And when you go into a pharmacy there, the person that works in the pharmacist there is called a druggist. And yes, they're trained in traditional pharmacology, but they're also trained in phytotherapy as well. Phytotherapy is as reductionist as you can get. It is double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trials, testing these botanicals in exactly the same way as drugs are tested. And that is the evidence base that's available. So if you're looking at these trials that are published in peer-reviewed journals, massive cohort studies, like 20, 30,000 in a clinical setting with the gold standard, most of them have a massive evidence base. The ones that don't aren't on sale anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is there. You just have to bypass all of the naysayers and actually look and see what's out there for yourself.
It upsets me sometimes when I get people going, well, my doctor said that's just a load of rubbish. And I'm like, I'm sorry, your GP probably doesn't know anything about it. I spend my life literally looking at this stuff. You have a degree in herbal biology. You also spend your life doing this stuff. Yeah. You also can't discount thousands and thousands of years worth of people's anecdotal evidence and that it's been used for thousands of years, especially in Chinese tradition.
With the anecdotal evidence, it's always a tricky one when you're kind of in sort of mainstream media settings, you're trying to talk about this stuff and justify it. But it really comes down to that old bit of wisdom that like, well, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, you can pretty much assume, unless there's something really telling you otherwise, that it's a duck, right? So if you've got 20,000 years of people reporting certain things,
that this is
there's possibly something there.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That should fan the research so we can actually understand fully why it's doing what it's doing so that we can utilise it to its maximal potential. But it shouldn't be discounted.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so your background is in nutritional medicine.
My first degree was human nutrition. Then I did my second degree in herbal medicine. Then I did the master's in nutritional medicine at Surrey. Yeah. So more slant towards nutrition.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go into how you got into nutrition, because if you want to go and watch one of Dale's other 300 podcasts that he's done where he mentions it, please go and find that, because I'm not going to waste some time going into it. No. It's a great story, and I definitely believe you found your path in life and you absolutely love it. The questions I get asked the most in our inbox is, one of the biggest ones is weight gain. Mm-hmm. Women are always concerned with their weight. It's literally, I think, hardwired into us. I don't know what it is. I'd love to look back into research and find out why it's so hardwired into us. Women have to be, they're just obsessed with their weight in every single way. And it's the biggest question that we get. Now, weight loss is not conducive to health. We know that.
No, you can be very, very slim and metabolically
horrendous.
Jiggers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always say that. I'm like, just because she looks like that, it doesn't mean she's like firing on all cylinders. Yeah, exactly. Believe me. And there's so many other indicators of health as well. It's like whether you're thriving, or are you feeling depressed, are you feeling bloated? Do they look like they're thriving? Is their eyesight great, hair great, nails great, whatever? But there isn't a one size fits all diet. But what would you say is kind of hedging your bets on going to be a great diet? Blimey.
As you say, there is so much going on. The one thing that I do absolutely reject is the calorie model.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been quite vocal about that, because I just think it's grossly inaccurate.
It absolutely. And
also, this is the thing. Metabolic science is bloody complicated.
Yeah.
And it's very convenient for people that don't want to spend like 10 years of their life studying this stuff.
Yeah. And there's
just be
so
like,
many
calories in, calories out. It's an easy
so
thing.
many variables as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's not about the calories, it's how are those calories behaving. But also, the calorie is the end point.
Yeah.
That's the amount of energy that's released from this food, potentially. That's how much energy is in there. That doesn't mean that energy is going to be burnt. It's all about substrate. I always say substrate is king. Substrate means the actual, where does that calorie come from? Is that calorie coming from protein, fat, carbohydrate?
Correct.
And that's the issue. And it's how that looks in one single snapshot of time that determines what the body does with that particular thing. So I guess this is kind of how I would answer the question that you asked me, is hedging your bets is understanding some of the basics of metabolism. So one of the reasons that low-carb diets have got so popular, for example, is because we've got a very good understanding that if blood sugar is too high in a very, very short sitting, the body preferentially stores the excess because it needs to. So blood glucose that's too high or too low, these are both life-threatening states, and the body is very, very well equipped to deal with either state. And it has to do this very efficiently, very effectively, otherwise you will die very quickly. So it puts these things into place. And, this is absolutely a life or death thing. This is why these situations occur. So whenever you eat and your blood sugar goes up, the body responds by releasing the hormone insulin. Insulin binds to an insulin receptor on our cells and opens a little doorway within the wall of the cell, which is called a glucose transporter. That allows the cell to take in glucose that it will then use to convert into ATP, which is what our cells run on. It's the energy that powers us. The issue is, and this is where things start to fall down, is that our cells can only take in so much glucose in one single sitting.
Right.
Once the cell is full, because an excess of sugar has the potential to damage DNA, to damage key structures in the cell, once the cell's got enough in there, it shuts the door. Okay. Now, if blood glucose is still above the safe baseline, so remember, too high, too low, both dangerous. If it's above the safe baseline, the next thing that happens is some will get converted into glycogen, which is a storage form of glucose that's stored in the skeletal muscle and in the liver. We can only store a limited amount of glycogen. At that point, if it's still high, it's got to be gotten out of the way. This is where the body will preferentially store it because it has to get it out of circulation.
And it can't go to your heart, lungs, any major organ. It has to shovel it somewhere.
Yeah, it gets sent to the liver. Yeah. The glucose gets sent to the liver and gets, by a process called de novo lipogenesis, gets converted into triglycerides. That is what is stored in your fat cells. Yeah. That is the storage form of energy. So firstly, you're starting to put on weight around the middle because that's the area of adipose tissue closest to the liver, so it's just dumping it in there. But also, that's being sent to the adipose tissue via the circulation, so your blood fats go up, which sends your bad cholesterol up. More importantly, small dense LDL. We'll get onto that in a minute because we're kind of getting off the point slightly. So this can happen even if you are in a calorie deficit, because it's got bugger all to do with calories. Correct. It's got to do with the fact that there is
quality of the calorie and where it came from.
Excess of a particular fuel substrate that has to be preferentially dealt with in order to maintain a healthy metabolic environment. So, but if you were to maintain that, so if you ate all that sugar and some of it was stored as fat and then you did a long fast, you would, of course, liberate it. But how many of us get into that? Very few. The point is, if you're building your diet, look, you think about the key messaging that's been drummed into us for decades. Oh, avoid saturated fat. Instead, build your diet around the healthy, starchy carbohydrates. Now, listen, I love carbs. I'm not demonizing these at all in any way, shape or form. You've just got to get the right ones in the right amounts, in the right combinations. Tell me if you think this is a typical pattern in the UK. Maybe you'd start your day with a bowl of cereal and a slice of toast.
Yeah, so carbohydrates, full of sugar, bang, insulin
up it goes.
Then maybe
all of those things we spoke about starts to happen. Then lunch,
mid-morning
sandwich,
snack,
packet
like
of crisps.
Flapjack again. So your insulin is not even recovered yet. You're bombing it again, more and more and more. Then maybe you have a wrap or a sandwich and a bag of crisps.
In the evening, a load of spuds or pasta or whatever. So, and it's not demonising any of these foods or any of that kind of stuff. It's the pattern of consumption that's the issue. So you could could tot your entire calories up for the day and you could be, quote unquote, in a calorie deficit. But because of the impact you've had on the metabolic environment, you've forced the body to deal with the fuel that you've put into it in a certain way in order to maintain equilibrium. Homeostasis is the number one objective of our body. Homeostasis, that constant balance of keeping everything in healthy ranges. So this is why we need to get out of that calorie model. Because this stuff's complicated. That's why so many people struggle. So I will say, look, even though there's a million and one nuances that really are as individual as we are, what it comes down to is getting back to whole foods. Get back to the kind of food that your grandparents were eating. There's a reason. You look at photographs of the British population
on a beach,
in the 50s. Everyone was
the
slim.
waists were like that.
Yeah, because they weren't eating this crap and they weren't eating it in the sheer amounts that we are. So literally, bring your diet back to whole foods. There's a couple of really, really awful, cheesy phrases that I'm going to use. They are cheesy, but you know what? They're accurate. So one of them, if it ran, swam, grew, or flew, then eat it. Everything else leave behind. And the other one, which is grammatically terrible. Real food doesn't contain ingredients. Real food is ingredients. You know what I mean?
It
is true.
But
it's true. It is true.
A pepper's only ingredient. It's a pepper.
Yeah, exactly.
Tomato.
Get back to whole foods. And then to take that a step further, your day-to-day carbohydrate staples. One, the first thing, I would rein in the amount that you consume. We don't need anywhere near as much as we're eating. So whatever you're currently eating, cut it in half.
Yeah.
That's a starting point. And then the ones that you choose, make sure that they're the slow burning type. And the simplest way to do that is swap the white for the brown. So if you're eating white bread, swap over to a granary bread. If you're eating white rice, over to brown rice. White pasta to brown pasta. That's the first thing. Like, reduce the amount by half and go over to the brown. Then every time you look at your plate, think, where is my protein?
Yeah.
And this could be meat, fish, eggs, or it could be tofu, tempeh, whatever your dietary preferences are. There's, I'm not precious that way, but make sure there's protein there.
Yeah.
Okay. Because several things. One, we need, if you're being physically active, you need that amount of protein to ensure you've got muscle protein synthesis and all that lovely stuff. But more importantly, we're talking about the metabolic effects. That will slow down the rate of digestion of that meal. Because that digestion has been slowed down, it means that the entire glucose content of that meal takes far, far longer to be liberated.
Yeah.
And because it takes longer to be liberated, instead of that carpet bombing of blood sugar,
where it's in and it's out very quickly,
where it has to be dealt with in the way that I described, you've got a constant gentle trickle.
Yeah.
The cells just take in that glucose, they use it to make energy. One, your energy levels are going to be amazing. You're going to be consistent. You're not going to get the ups and downs, peaks and troughs. But finally, you're going to bring insulin down low enough where you can start, just hit the mic there, you can actually start to tap into
the adipose tissue and start
and
utilizing
you're not storing
that.
excess afterwards.
Yeah.
So that's the second thing. First thing, reduce the amount of carbs by half. Make sure you go for the slow burn. Second thing, look at your plate. Where's my protein?
Yeah.
And then the third thing, when you look at your plate, 50% of it non-starchy veg.
Yeah.
So the non-starchy veg, that's all the leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, all of that good stuff. And as long as you're kind of building your diet around that, that's most of your bets hedged. Now, this isn't to say that is automatically going to be the magic bullet for you, because every single one of us is unique within reason. And there's going to be tweaks that are needed. Plus, especially if you're dealing with hormonal issues, you're always fighting against that variable as well. Yeah. It's going to put you in the best position to be able to deal with it more effectively, though. And
it takes longer than you think. Yes. Like the other thing that I see is people flipping and flopping between so many different diets, and they never give anything long enough to actually just stop. You know what I mean? And then it's the latest, newest craze. Well, I'm on 800 calories a day. I'm doing Slimming World. I'm doing Weight Watchers. I really disagree with Slimming World in the fact that, you're allowed to drink Strongbow and Muller Lights as much as you want and as much pasta as you want, and they demonise an avocado, and they have different sins for a mashed banana than one that hasn't been mashed. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it makes no sense. And I think
no, it doesn't.
It makes no sense. It annoys me more than anything. Edging your bets. So I completely agree with you. This cropped up in my head. Sweet potato.
Yes.
Where do you stand on sweet potato? Is it better than a white potato? Is it not? in terms of like your blood sugar spiking, insulin? Again,
if you ate both of them in isolation, there would be not much difference.
Yeah.
Sweet potato's got slightly more fibre in there, so you've got a slight lower glycemic impact.
I always go sweet potato over a white potato.
Well, you've got the carotenoids and you've got the more fibre, so there's
the colour. There's more benefit.
So from that point of view, I would say sweet potatoes, especially the purple ones. Those are incredible.
Well, they're rare. You can go to your farm shop and get them, but I can't get them in Tesco on the whole
protein
street.
and fat. So you've got a baked sweet potato. How about having like a beef spinach courgette chili on it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way to do it, because the added protein and the fats will slow down the digestion of that meal. The glucose content of that potato will get liberated much more slowly. If you just ate like a bowl full of sweet potato wedges, then crash bang.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, love that. Okay. I think that is like kind of the key takeaway there. You've got to let it trickle. You've got to slow it down.
Yeah.
So that it is that nice trickle into your cells and not, because this is what I find a lot, it's up, down, up, down, up, down all day.
Yeah. I want to actually take something further that you mentioned. You said people don't give these things long enough. Now, one of the things that happens, if we've been following that typical diet that's sending blood sugar up all the time, eventually, because we're secreting so much insulin over and over again,
we become insulin sensitive or resistant.
The insulin receptor on the cell, after a while, it's almost like the boy that cried wolf. The receptor's like, I think maybe the pancreas has kind of lost his shit. And he's like, there's definitely like something weird going on here. So I'm just going to ignore this insulin signal because clearly this can't be right.
Right.
And the amount of insulin that we're producing doesn't have the same effect.
Right.
The first thing that happens is we start to produce a little bit more, and that works temporarily.
Yeah.
But then the same thing kicks in even more aggressively. We go into that state of insulin resistance where the receptor essentially is just ignoring the signal. And at that point, all of those things that I mentioned.
So blood sugar stays high?
Yeah, it happens like 1,000 times faster, and that's when you start putting on more and more weight, and you might start to notice that your blood pressure's going up and your cholesterol's going up, and all these things are falling apart. And ultimately, if this carries on, the glucotoxicity that occurs starts to damage the beta cells in the pancreas, and that's when someone has type 2 diabetes. Now, you need to be following a low glycemic diet long enough for receptor dynamics to return to normal, meaning that the receptors start to realize there's less insulin about. Okay, so maybe we're going to start to listen to his signals again, right? And the receptors become more sensitive. And when insulin drops low enough for long enough, we actually start to develop more insulin receptors because it almost gets lower than it ever has been. So it's like, well, this is interesting. I need to kind of multiply myself so that I can make maximal use of the insulin signal when it's sent out. So our insulin sensitivity increases when we follow a low glycemic diet over time, and you do need to give it time. I would say the minimum before you start to see things move. You might notice like fluctuations in like water weight and stuff like that relatively quickly. But you're looking like 12 weeks and beyond for these physiological changes to really...
Like, no,
it is a lifestyle, completely.
This is if you've got to the point where you've got type 2 diabetes, you must be fucking on another planet if you want to stay on medication and not fix that, because it is completely fucking reversible.
100%. In my own clinic, my own practice, I have reversed... Well, the diet has reversed so many patients...
It's really reversible.
The only time sometimes there could be an issue is if someone's had it for a very long period of time and there's secondary damage. So if they've got peripheral neuropathy, which is damage to the nervous system, and they may get like numbness in the extremities, or there's very, very advanced cardiovascular disease. Absolutely, I'll get them on the diet. Absolutely, I'll do all of that. But sometimes they still need the medication support just to stop them dropping dead.
I mean, but that must be rare. That must be like 5%.
It's more common than you think. It's more common than you think. It depends on the age of the patient ultimately and how long they've actually been
living
in that
lifestyle.
So if, for example, I'm seeing patients that are in their mid-60s and they've started getting metabolic disease in their 40s, then multiple systems are under pressure. If we're talking people like young patients that are just in their early 40s, then you can stop it dead in weeks.
Yeah.
You can just completely, they can be diabetes free. They can never need to go anywhere near medication.
Yeah.
So it always has to be patient centered. And I never use blanket statements like, oh, it's always reversible. Yeah. Most of the time, the one thing that I can always guarantee is that you can put the brakes on.
Yeah,
regardless of how far someone is along, you can stop it going any further and you can stop it getting worse. Most of the time, you can turn it back. But if there's really a large amount of secondary damage because of the disease, then you're limited to you wouldn't be able to reverse that necessarily. Peripheral neuropathy, you might be able to improve it marginally, but you wouldn't reverse it.
So you can get neuropathy as well from like stress, high stress all the time. I know someone who's got that, who's got a great diet, but like
it isn't the answer to everything. That's the beauty of it.
And I said that's chronic stress over a long period of time, and that's what's happened. The question that threw up in my head then was same with blood pressure. So a lot of people, again, they've put on weight and then will reach for a statin. And I'm like, again, reversible.
Statins, obviously, that's the cholesterol. That's HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor. That kind of blocks the enzyme that's synthesizing cholesterol. It reduces that. But the downside of that is that the thing that it reduces is also the thing that manufactures the transport system for coenzyme Q10. So a lot of people can find their cholesterol goes down, but their risk of heart failure goes up because the muscles aren't getting enough. This is when
they're on statins.
Yeah. So when our cells put glucose to use to make ATP, you've got two stages of chemical reactions to actually turn glucose into ATP or use glucose to make ATP.
And what's ATP?
Adenosine triphosphate. That's what our cells actually run on.
Right.
The first stage is called the Krebs cycle. And that's where B vitamins, so nicotine and riboflavin, are used in that, and NAD as well, that everyone's going on about at the minute. And then the second stage is called the electron transport chain. And coenzyme Q10 is an essential part of driving the electron transport chain. But coenzyme Q10, it's a lipid-soluble compound that is carried on the same transporters that can actually transport cholesterol as well. So with those HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor drugs, i.e. statins, they're blocking the enzyme that's manufacturing the transport system for coenzyme Q10. So people are finding their coenzyme Q10 needs aren't being met. They're getting muscle pains because their muscles aren't able to generate enough energy. So they're going into that anaerobic state where they're getting like the lactic acid buildup. The heart muscle, the most energy demanding muscle in the body, if the heart's energy needs aren't being met, then someone can slowly move into heart failure. So there's some weird irony that their cholesterol's going down, but their risk of heart failure is going up. But here's the thing: cholesterol's a vital substance.
Well, it is absolutely. We need it,
especially with everything that you talk about with Sera.
Absolutely, you've got to have cholesterol.
Cholesterol is the substrate for all of our steroidal hormones.
Yeah.
So, testosterone, estrogen, all of these, they're made out of cholesterol. If your cholesterol goes too low, then you're buggered anyway.
Yeah.
So,
no, again, it's like with anything, there's a sweet spot.
Yes.
Too high, no good.
Well,
too
again,
low.
just like the calorie picture, it's how that cholesterol behaves.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. No such thing. Cholesterol is one substance. When we talk about LDL and HDL...
I was just about to say, what's the difference between HDL and LDL?
Right, so they're the transporters. High-density lipoprotein, low-density lipoprotein.
And what if one's high and one is normal?
Right, well, this is the thing. I mean, to give you the analogy and why this is an issue, I always use the analogy of a bus station and two different bus routes.
Okay.
One bus route takes people from the bus station out to the surrounding villages.
Yeah.
Another route picks people up from the surrounding villages, takes them back to the station. So HDL, that's the one that's basically picking people up from the surrounding villages, taking it back to the station.
Right.
That is the lipoprotein that's collecting cholesterol from the peripheries and taking it back to the liver to be broken down and recycled. LDL, which is sometimes labeled bad cholesterol, that's the lipoprotein that's carrying cholesterol from the liver and taking it out into the peripheral tissues. The theory being, if that's dominant, you're getting more cholesterol taken out around the body, the greater the chance of it being deposited in the blood vessel walls. It's not as simple as that.
Okay.
Because LDL comes in lots of different sizes and shapes, right? You could have LDL that's through the roof and be at zero risk of cardiovascular disease, because LDL can be what's called large fluffy particles, which is basically like big globules that kind of drifts through your circulation like clouds. No damage whatsoever.
Yeah.
Does no damage whatsoever. But there's another type of LDL, well, there's loads, but on the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got small, dense LDL particles, which, as the name suggests, these things are tiny,
like little bullets.
Compact little bullets.
Yeah.
Those can be, in the right metabolic environment, the things that become embedded within the blood vessel walls. What's the biggest contributor to elevated small dense LDL? It is unmanaged blood glucose.
Right.
That is the thing that will push, like even if you cut out fat completely, if you had a very high glycemic diet of all these white
Sugars,
processed
donuts,
carbohydrates,
cakes,
exactly,
pizza,
then your small dense LDL will be through the roof. And also with that, you get a baseline amount of inflammation, and it's inflammatory damage that then catapults the small LDL into the blood vessel wall, and that starts cardiovascular disease. So I can't even remember how we got onto that, but this is like, the
absolutely. So, okay, and HDL. So
HDL, I mean, if HDL's high...
Is that an issue?
No, that's great.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's great. But like I say, it doesn't really matter if your LDL's high, if it's large, fluffy. So if your cholesterol's high, if you've like had a routine blood test at the doctor and they said, right, your cholesterol is X, Y, Z, the next thing you can do, if you're in a position to do so,
I actually do know someone, this is why I'm asking this question, I actually do know someone who showed me their blood work and their HDL was high. Everything else was okay, but HDL was that.
Well, that's good. That's a good state. It was high HDL.
And it threw up something on thyroid as well. Like it's not an issue now, but it could be. Like it was at the higher end of the scale.
But if someone's in that position, they've got that reading, they need to get a advanced lipid panel test. And you would need to do that privately.
Yeah.
You might be able to persuade an NHS doctor to do it. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
You've probably got more chance of doing with Lord Lucan. But these advanced lipid panels, they will give you the full breakdown of all the particle sizes. If that comes back and like the
fluffy
the
ones
LDL
are
is
high,
large, then
brilliant.
Then no issue. Don't worry.
And if it's a little bullet.
If it's small dense, then you've got to make some changes. Yeah.
You would know that, surely. You would know if it came back with something like that. You would go, well, I know what I eat. I know I am eating chocolate bars all day.
Well, only if you've got that level of awareness.
Yeah,
I mean, hopefully, like people finding this kind of information. That,
Okay.
Any cardiologist will tell you about this. I mean, it's just like, but it's...
While we're talking about blood tests, so I see loads of times I get adverts fired at me on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, for these, finger prick tests that you can go. And what do you think of them?
Depends what you're testing.
Yeah. What if it was just like, a profile of like nutritional, like, you like your mineral, like your magnesium, your copper,
right. Okay, now this is where things can kind of go amiss.
Your B vitamins.
So let's use magnesium as the perfect example.
Okay.
Blood is a poor medium to test someone's magnesium status.
Right.
Okay. Because similar to glucose, similar to many things, there's narrow parameters that need to stay in circulation. So say, for example, calcium levels go up. First thing that happens is vitamin D will mobilize it and take it into the skeleton.
Right.
And calcium goes down, vitamin D will take it out of the skeleton and put it into circulation. Yeah. There's always systems in place to maintain the concentration in circulation at all times.
Yeah.
But hair mineral analysis is an ideal medium to test magnesium. But then other things like omega-3, for example, blood is a fantastic. So we use whole blood and erythrocytes as well, which are the red blood cells.
Yeah.
So you look at the omega-3 to omega-6 ratios in those, absolutely brilliant marker. So it depends what you're measuring.
So which medium that you want to see.
Exactly. The one thing that really gets up my nose is the intolerance tests.
Yeah, well, I was going to bring that up. I know it does.
Right, here we go. So we're like ready for another rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Okay, so most of them, although things are evolving, but certainly in the early days, they were measuring IgG antibodies.
Yeah.
Now, so with our immune system, there's two different ways that the immune system can work. We've got two branches, okay? One that's called antibody-mediated, one that's called non-specific. Antibody-mediated, that's where the body experiences something. So this is why, like, people have vaccines. This is why, like, if you've had chickenpox, you have to be really unlucky to get it again as shingles. Yeah. Or like if you have measles, you won't have it again because your body's been exposed to it once. It recognises it. Yeah. It develops antibodies to that specific antigen.
Yeah.
And then every time it's exposed to it, it knows what immunological defence to rally to stop you getting sick. So that's the antibody mediated. Then the non-specific branch of the immune system, that doesn't run on antibodies. That can just detect cell surface markers and distress signals from infected or damaged cells and can sort of determine whether something is self or non-self and deliver some kind of immunological response. with these antibodies, we've got loads of different types of antibodies. There's a specific type called IgG antibodies that are measured, that certainly were the main focus in the early days of these intolerance tests and still are with the cheaper ones. IgG antibodies, yes, they can be a sign of intolerance. They can also be a sign of tolerance. Now, there's something called tolerance, which is basically when we eat food, you think about it, that's a foreign item.
Yeah.
Coming into the body,
the
gastrointestinal tract is incredibly tightly policed by the immune system. We've got patches of tissue called Peyer's patches that are like little sort of security huts filled with different types of immune cells that are constantly monitoring gut contents and relaying that information back to the immune system. And when different nutrients and phytochemicals and things have gone through all of their stages of digestion, eventually they've got to be absorbed. And that's kind of like when they get to the door and the bouncer's there and it's just like, is your name on the list? Yeah, in you come.
Yeah.
That's the IgG antibodies. The IgG antibodies are there to actually say, yep, we recognise this, that can come in, or we don't recognise that, it's staying out. So you can have IgG antibodies for all sorts of things. Yeah. You're like, hang on, I eat lemons and mushrooms and all the rest of it, and nothing happens. Well, what you're showing is all the things that your body can tolerate.
Exactly. So they make no sense, these kind of intolerance tests.
It's getting better.
Right.
And ultimately, if there's two things. If you really suspect that you've got an intolerance, there's two ways to get a pretty good idea. One is almost foolproof. The other is a pretty good idea. So a pretty good idea is an exclusion diet. Take out the thing that you suspect for at least 12 weeks, then reintroduce it. If you get symptoms from holy hell, chances are that you've got the intolerance. If there's nothing, then chances are it wasn't. If you want 100% accuracy, go and see a clinical immunologist. That is what they're trained to do. That's what they do. They can give you the medical grade blood test. They can test you in an evidence-based way so they can give you an evidence-based accurate report at the end of it.
Yeah. I mean, I've looked at some people's reports and it's like, I'm allergic to tomatoes and like all carbs. And I'm like, well, that is fucking ridiculous. That is like every single one on the planet. Yeah. Like ridiculous.
Well, so here's the thing. It's just like, well, if you're eating protein, then you're actually getting, once you've gone past your protein quota, your body will move into something called gluconeogenesis and you will synthesize carbs out of protein. Do you drop dead? No, so you're not.
No, exactly. No, it's and I was like, it's just too basic and it's an absolute waste of time, waste of money. Yeah, I'm dead against that. And then somebody else that I know, this was mental. She went to see somebody and they put like a metal stick on her.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Right.
Well, basically,
and I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, honestly, I'm allergic to all sugar.
This shit's like Star Trek level stuff, right? I mean, like, you might as well just, I don't know, you probably get more sense out of going to see a witch doctor. Do you know what I mean? Like, just casting stones or runes. Or, I don't know.
This is what I said. I said, you might as well go to a tarot reader.
I've seen these things. Like, you hold these electrodes. I mean, it looks like you're about to, like, get the chair.
Explain what this is, because I'm going to send this to her. I've got no idea. It's just
bollocks. It is bollocks. That's all I can say. And they kind of apparently put the frequency of certain foods in there. Really?
It sounds like Scientology stuff. You know how you like hold those electrodes and going,
even this would make L. Ron Hubbard turn around and be like, what the fuck, mate, that's a bit much, isn't it? There's just no basis to it whatsoever. Now, I'm not against like things like energy therapies and stuff. I'm very, very much into that kind of stuff because a lot of that, you can actually do scientific experiments on it and actually see what's going on here. But with this, there's no evidence base whatsoever. And people are holding these electrodes and all of a sudden there's this thing that's like, it's like something out of Ghostbusters. Do you know what I mean? Expect little things to go up at the side.
So what do they do? Get the frequency of a lemon and like put it
apparently
through?
Apparently so.
Is that fucking it? I can't believe it. Anyway, she was like, I'm allergic to like all sugar.
Other versions where they put these little vials and the little vial apparently has the frequency of XYZ food and they put it in there. And if it goes woo,
my God.
That's kind of like
I had to laugh and but she was but I was like, well, most people would be better without. She says now she doesn't have any sugar and she'll feel so much better. I'm like, well, I'll tell you what,
that's a surprise.
No shit, Sherlock. So
didn't see that one coming.
So that's funny. Well, there you go. There's lots of things online that I see. The other one, and they were like quite pissed off that I wouldn't promote it actually. It's something that would tell me my metabolism if I breathed into it.
Now, That's not to say that can't be done, because it absolutely can. And I'll tell you why I know this.
Don't tell me that you're working for them.
No, not at all. Have you ever seen the metabolic lab at the University of Westminster?
No.
Or have you ever seen, like, when you've got, like, NASA astronauts in training, they'll be on a treadmill and they'll have the thing like in their mouth. Yeah. You can determine how you're metabolising certain things with breath. It's not that it's nonsense. It's whether this commercially available device is capable of doing that. You know, you can go in like the pods. I can't remember the full name. There's something pod, and that can determine exactly what kind of fuel source you're metabolising because of the temperature fluctuations. Right. All of these things are real in terms of the evidence base. I mean, that lab at the University of Westminster, that's where I did my first degree. That thing's mental. That is literally like a NASA training ground. So that level of science and that kind of technology absolutely exists, absolutely has the evidence base. But I think the conclusion that you and I come to is that does a commercially available device that probably costs...
The problem for me was, then, I'm not going to promote this to my customers and or anybody who follows me, because it's paralysis by analysis. Because, again, people will then focus on this 2%. Oh, I've breathed into this and it's telling me that I'm only burning carbohydrates. I must eat more carbohydrates or something. They don't really understand the science. They don't really understand their diet. And let's be honest, they probably have bigger lifestyle changes that they actually need to address first before they start. If you're an athlete, maybe it's time to start testing our breath.
Yes.
But the large majority
go
of
to the space
people,
station.
right, you know, an astronaut, yes, probably. Let's try and test their breath, because that's really fucking critical.
Biohacker, you're probably
Absolutely. But for the large majority of people...
Get your eating patterns right. Get the big picture right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Please get off the couch, do some exercise, do 10,000 steps at least, get some vitamin D, get some sunlight, supplement smartly, reduce your stress levels, do some yoga, do some meditation, stop watching junk on TV, start reading some books. All of these things will be better than breathing into a device. So I was I was like, sorry, this is not for me. And they were like, please, can you tell us why? I was like, I haven't got time to tell you, but this is actually...
Send a voice note.
Yeah, sorry.
You're known for your, like, sort of kind of gentle, tactful sort of approach there, in essence.
Yeah, I know. But I just think, again, so I have a Whoop strap, and I've just given up on it.
Ring,
yeah. And I just thought, God, again, a bit of paralysis by analysis sometimes.
I think, to be fair, people like us that are obsessed with this shit, like it's a different kettle of fish, right? For me, this was to master my sleep.
Yeah.
My sleep for years has been atrocious, and this has been a really, really useful tool for me to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't for me, and also just to see, like, you know, things like heart rate variability and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because, you know, 46 now, I'm kind of thinking, well, 50 ain't far away. I want to make sure that I understand where my body is, where I'm at, how I can support it the right way, all of these kinds of things. But I completely agree with what you say. For most people, it's the big picture stuff first. These things are great if you're a nerd.
And you want to really hone in on something. Like, for me, it was to maximise my output in the gym. Yeah. Now, I've just had a baby. She doesn't let me sleep that much and stuff like that. So sometimes it's a way to indicate to my PT, you can push me hard today. I can take it. The strain is telling me I can take it, or leave it back a bit, because otherwise it will be taken away from me.
And your recovery will be affected.
Correct. And that's kind of why I had it. But again, for most people, it's just completely unnecessary.
It's getting the regular routine of building exercise into your life and healthy diet patterns and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's got to come first.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. I mean, God, I've been into this stuff 31 years, so it's like, well, I love the nerdy stuff, but just get the basics right. And this is a really important thing to say to people is that kind of detail really doesn't matter that much. The nuances don't matter that much, and also, don't find another stick to beat yourself with, because too many people feel guilty because they can't live up to ridiculous ideals that don't matter anyway. It's just like, just do the best you physically can in the situation that you're in. Yeah. Don't put ridiculous judgment on yourself. Whatever you can do, whatever your budget can stretch to, whatever your skills in the kitchen or available time can stretch to, just do the best that you can. And we all know whether we're doing the best that we can or whether we're not. And that's always enough. And you can always grow out from that point.
Absolutely. You can always build on that. Yes, but get your fundamentals right. That's what I say week in, week out on this podcast. And the other thing I say week in, week out, so let's say it again. Women, you must be weight training. In fact, anybody across the board needs to be doing resistance training.
And as soon as you cross that 35-year-old threshold,
anybody,
men and women.
Anybody over the age of 35, It's non-negotiable because the only way to keep bones strong, keep the muscles strong, it's literally the difference between getting off the couch at 70 and not.
Well, and dying prematurely. Sarcopenia is related to more deaths over 60 than anything else.
And what's sarcopenia?
Sarcopenia is when the muscles just kind of
wither away
and there's not enough strength to hold themselves properly, so they have falls.
Yeah.
Once you get a hip fracture, most people over 75 that go into hospital with a hip fracture never come out.
Literally.
Yeah.
You never want to be going to hospital or they break the wrist.
Yeah,
because they've had a fall.
Yeah, because the blood loss from a hip fracture is like very, very severe. And what causes all of these falls? It's sarcopenia.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's neurological disorders and things like that, obviously.
Yeah.
But in the highest proportion of cases, it's sarcopenia. If you lay the foundations early in life, that will carry all the way through, and that will put you at such an advantage.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. I say it absolutely week in, week out. And every single person that I meet, and I always say, please, if nothing I've ever said to you in my life, you've never taken anything away, take this. You have to be weight training. Yeah. And I mean that because it is the difference. It can add 10 years to your life. Easily. It's the difference between not just
also the metabolic effects because lean tissue.
Lean muscle tissue requires more energy
active,
just to be there. So
it enhances glucose sensitivity. So everything that we spoke about earlier, that will be dramatically improved just by increasing the amount of lean tissue.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many benefits.
I mean, I'm always like, because I know a lot of women, like they go to Zumba or they go to like classes and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's great from a social aspect. I don't care if I know there's a lot of gym intimidation in the gym. They don't want to go to a guy's gym or they don't want to lift weights and stuff. I get that. But there's so many resources online now. You can just buy some weights, you do it at home.
Yeah.
There's no really, I will not accept an excuse. I will not accept an excuse.
It is a challenge. Like, if you want like, and this isn't promotion or anything, P90X.
Yeah. Very good.
It's basically, it's almost entirely body weight.
Yeah.
It's like video based. When I did that, oh my God, it kicked 7 bells of shit out of me. Yeah. And I didn't know what had hit me. And like, I've never, ever been battered like that in a gym. This thing is serious. So you don't need to go to the gym.
No.
You don't need to spend huge amounts on crazy equipment or insane regimes.
Yeah.
You can get great resources in some of these subscription things that will absolutely rock your world when it comes to that kind of stuff. So.
No, I'm a big believer in that. Yeah. And not only that, it like, you look better, feel better.
Yeah.
Everything it's so much better. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Okay. So we've kind of talked about the perfect diet and everything. There's a couple of other things that lots of our ladies deal with. Heavy periods is the one I kind of get the most. What would you recommend for heavy periods?
Again, it would depend on so many other variables. I mean, is there any endometriosis? Is there any PCOS? Is there those kind of things? Because this is where I would go to herbalist mode. Yeah. Nutrition, there's certainly a lot of evidence to show that low glycemic diets can improve ovulation. Yeah. So very beneficial for PCOS. Even if you look on the British Dietetic Association website, low glycemic diets is one of their key bits of advice for people with PCOS. So the evidence base is very strong. You might get some benefit with like menorrhagia, dysmenorrhea. You might get some kind of benefit with a low glycemic diet. Probably not a lot. This is where I would go to herbs. Yeah. So there's a herb called Vitex agnus castus, okay, which can work miracles. Yeah. It can really, really help to bring regularity back to the cycle. It can stop severity in terms of
like blood loss.
The blood loss, but also pain.
Right.
And also the severity of uterine contractions. Yeah. The only issue with agnus castus is because it affects like follicle stimulating hormone and all these other hormones. Do not just walk into a health food shop and buy the shit off the shelf, right? If you're concerned, drop me a line on Instagram. We'll have a couple of voice notes or whatever. We'll have a little conversation. This stuff's really powerful. If you're taking it when you don't need to, you can do yourself some damage. And also, you need to take it for 3 full cycles before you can even start to gauge
whether it's working or not.
Because you need to have ovulated from both ovaries to even know whether you're starting to get any kind of benefit from it. And it's usually the third. This is another little caveat, and I always say this to all of my patients. I always view it as a pendulum. Often you'll find like when you start taking agnus castus, the first period that you have after it is like the best you've ever had. Right. And you'll be on the phone saying, oh my God, you're a miracle worker. I'll be like,
wait
hold this.
Yeah.
The second period you have will be the worst in your life, and you'll be on the phone calling me all the arseholes under the sun. No, it'll be worse than that. What the fuck have you done to me? I've had it. And then it's like, when you get to the third one, that's when the pendulum starts to stop swinging, and that's when things will normalise and balance out. And that's when you'll get an idea of how well this is actually suiting you. So that's one thing that can be beneficial. Obviously, and hopefully this should go without saying, but if you are prone to heavy bleeding, start taking iron at least 10 days before you're due to come on.
Yeah.
And this needs to be decent iron, not ferrous sulfate and the crap you get from the doctor. Something like iron bisglycinate, which is sometimes called gentle iron in the supplement. Because you will help to buffer some of that iron loss. Yeah. At least. But yeah, herbs really are. There's another one, I think we spoke about this when we were having lunch, Capsella bursa pastoris. Otherwise known as shepherd's purse. Shepherd's purse.
Shepherd's purse is what I know it as. I don't know about that.
Yeah, shepherd's purse. That's again, going back to this old herbal terminology, is what we
Well, the only person who speaks in ye old, the whole herb terminology is you.
I speak fluent cat weasel, Do you remember cat weasel? That's going back. So it is like what we call a uterine astringent. So it basically helps to reduce blood flow.
Okay, so if you suffer with like endo, again, we get so many customers with endo, but I'm a bit like, well, if you've got so much scar tissue, really... I don't know. Well, it depends where you are with your endo. I'm well not equipped to deal with it sometimes, and the messages I get. And I'm like, but there's so many frustrations. But you can't get an appointment at the GP. You can't get an appointment anywhere. And even, I mean, Kelly won't mind me saying that she talks about it a lot. Kelly has endometriosis. She is always suffering, bless her. And her next appointment is in 12 months' time. Like 12 months' time. And she's like suffering every single day. I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I don't know what they can alleviate in the meantime.
Agonist castus, again, can be very, very beneficial because that tissue is responsive to the same hormonal signals as, that same tissue that happens just to be within the uterus. It's not that it's behaving differently. It's just managed to start to appropriate in other areas. I mean, like whether it's like in the pelvic girdle, some people get it in joints. Depends where it is. It also depends how it's affecting your quality of life. It can be easily removed with keyhole surgery.
But it's getting an appointment with... Oh, it does come back regularly,
So certainly...
I know she's had keyhole surgery at least 3 times. So it does come back.
Agonist castus can sort of alleviate the severity. But with that, I would say it's going to be symptomatic relief. It's certainly not going to eradicate it.
No, it's not eradicating, but it's just kind of a crutch to get you through until you can get it sorted. We have lots of that. I mean, the statistics says 1 in 10 women have endo now.
Crazy.
Or PCOS. I don't know where these statistics come from because they also say it goes undetected. So I'm thinking...
Isn't it like 15% of all statistics are made up?
Well, I'm just
I can't even pronounce the statistics.
Yeah, so when it's like Endometriosis Awareness Month, I'm always like, excuse me, can you tell me where that figure's come from? No one can ever tell me where that figure's come from because on the other hand, they tell me it's completely, like, there's so much of it undetected. I'm like, well, someone's telling me it's 1 in 10 here.
Yeah.
But that's another story. It's. I feel like there's so many more hormonal health issues going on at the moment. Is that because? I don't know. Is it because our diets are getting worse? The one thing I did want to bring up on this podcast, is I brought it up on my last one with a pharmacist, is this new drug that's set to be the most highest grossing drug in the world. It's called Wegovy. It's an injectable. They're supposed to be giving it to diabetes patients to help them lose weight, but it's everywhere. Every celebrity seems to be on it. Allegedly, the Kardashians are on it. Elon Musk is on it. Everybody seems to be on this wonderful weight loss drug. I mean, is it as wonderful as we think it is?
Sure, it can work, but at what cost? It's
so what is the cost? Let's say, okay, you're a little bit overweight. Elon Musk, he's actually come out and said he's on it, right? So wasn't grossly overweight.
No.
He could have just changed his diet. He's got the affordability. He has got the resources.
It's obviously working for him. You've seen the pictures of him recently. He's been getting his shirt off and it's
exactly. So he's got the resources to lock in his diet, exercise, and etc. Doesn't really need to be taking a drug and maybe shortcutting it. He wasn't grossly overweight and he definitely didn't have diabetes, but yet he's on it and he's actually said he's on it. So let's say he's on it and he's on it for a long period of time. What would that do over time?
While he's taking it, it's not going to particularly cause any harm. It's when they stop. There is a bounce back weight gain and it's usually gaining it back with interest. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Plus, long-term data isn't there. There's no way of knowing how it's going to affect other elements of the endocrine system.
Yeah.
Or nutrient absorption. Or
and the side effects of it must make you feel fucking awful.
Yeah.
Nausea, diarrhea. It will affect your sleep probably. If it's anything like semaglutide, of which I tried because I was doing an investigation on it, and I wanted to see if this particular place would sell it to me with me having such a low BI and BMI, and they did. I felt horrendous.
Yeah.
Felt horrendous. Took it for one day. I had to go back to bed.
Is this the one that causes leakage?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Basically, if you've had any kind of fatty foods, it's coming straight out the other end without any warning.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
okay.
and it literally just trickles out, which is nice, like dinner party conversation. But it does happen.
But it also teaches you nothing.
My big issue is exactly as we have discussed over and over again. It's taking people away from just getting the basics right.
Yeah.
It's like, I understand there's budget constraints. I understand the pressures that people are under. I mean, God, with Eat Shop Save, we did this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
There's always a way around it. But get those basic dietary patterns in check. Because otherwise you're always just going to be sweeping the dirt under the rug.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if all of a sudden if you're getting it prescribed and all of a sudden your doctor's like, you're not having that anymore.
Yeah.
Or you've got to pay for it and then you realise it's like 800 quid a month or whatever. And you have to stop taking it, that weight's going to come back with interest.
Yeah. And all you've learned is, well, I need to take that to lose weight because
you just learned to jack up, basically.
Exactly. You've not learned anything. You've not changed your lifestyle. You've not learned anything about your body, nutritional
and you've got to
deficiencies.
understand that health is so much. I mean, in terms of, you did kind of pay mention to it before, like things like the 800 calorie diet, very well established for people that are in that emergency status that really need to get BMI down so they can actually start to more successfully respond to other interventions for things like type 2 diabetes. Absolutely great. There is a certain type of person in a certain clinical need that needs to do that. But then what happens after that? They need to get the lifestyle right. They need to get active. They need to learn their healthy eating patterns.
Yeah.
Health is so much more than just the amount of weight that you're carrying. Of course, if you're overweight, you're at greater risk of multiple diseases. But by improving these patterns in your eating and your physical activity, yes, you're going to manage your weight more effectively, but you're going to reduce your risk of dying young. You're going to improve cardiovascular health. You're going to improve cognitive function like bilio. I mean, that's going to dramatically improve. It's going to improve your mood. It's going to improve your sleep. It's going to improve your skin tone. It's going to make everything look amazing.
There's no point losing weight and then because you're so, again, it switches off that your appetite. Okay, so, but your appetite is only there because your body is telling you that you need something. So if you switch that off, you're not getting what your body needs.
Yeah.
You're not getting those little
And if you're eating whole foods, you ain't going to get the hunger pangs. That's a sure fact.
No, exactly, yeah. So you're not hitting your nutritional needs. So you're starving yourself from the inside. So there's no point losing weight when you look like a bag of shit, like your hair's falling out, you've got brittle nails, your skin tone's awful, you've got brain fog, you're not sleeping, you've got insomnia, but oh my God, I've lost 2 stone on the scale.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it worth it?
I mean,
no.
You see people who've done these low-fat diets for 40 years.
And they look like...
It basically looks like someone's put like makeup and a wig on a scrotum. It's like, they look terrible. Like, there's no skin tone, there's no, all of the collagen's been depleted. It's like, yeah, fine, you can still get into a certain clothing size.
Yeah.
But you've destroyed so many other aspects of your health that you could have supported with good, healthy eating patterns. And the thing is, really important caveat, because I can automatically become aware of this in the tone of what I've just said.
Yes.
That not everyone knows this stuff.
Yeah.
So I completely get that. I completely appreciate and respect and sympathise with that.
Yeah.
But that's why people like myself and Alyssa are here, to help, to support you, to give you the information, to give you resources, to point you in the right direction so that you can make these changes.
Yeah.
It's nobody's fault if they don't know, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, of course,
and I've never, ever been the type of person that points the finger.
No, absolutely not. And anybody wants to better themselves. Oh my God, I love that. There's nothing more than I love than my inbox going, I want to lose weight. I'm like, right, okay, what have you tried? And I'm like, have you tried everything? They're like, I feel like I have. But then they go, and I'll be honest, no bullshit now, because I'll be invested if you are invested.
Yeah.
And I literally sit there and I'm like, I will be the same. So you've got my full support, but I want you to be completely honest. Then they're like, no, you're right. I'm lazy, I binge eat, I this, that and the other.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
But once you're aware of it,
Yeah.
you can do something about it.
Yeah.
This is the thing, yeah.
And I'll be like,
So
okay.
I just wanted to say that because
Yeah.
obviously
No,
I
it's true.
realised possibly my tone was a little condescending. I didn't mean
Yeah.
it to be, because what you don't know, you don't know. But educating yourself as to what good eating patterns are and doing the best that you can within your unique set of circumstances, that's going to give you improvements that go above and beyond anything that those kind of drug interventions ever will.
You are not deficient in Ozempic.
No, this is true.
It's absolutely not necessary.
Yeah.
It really isn't. And I hate the way it's all anyone can talk about in the media. I hate it. I hate the way everything's getting medicalised.
This is the thing. I mean, you and I both know how the media works. We've both had plenty of exposure in it and seen it from both sides of the picture. They just love anything that's going to get clicks.
Catchy headlines. Yeah, of course. It's
talking.
a business.
You know, if it's not Ozempic, it's going to be migrants. It's going to be Brexit. It's going to be Rishi Sunak and what colour underpants he's got on today. It's going to be something that's just going to get people talking or get people clicking on that link so they can display ads to them. You need to look beyond all of that.
You do, and I'll just show my hand. I was in the business of selling stories, you know. Yeah. I used to be a freelance journalist, which was even harder because you're not getting a salary, so you would have to make it more sensational to sell that story. I was in the business of selling. Don't forget that news is you're selling news. That's all you're consuming.
And the more salacious, the better.
Absolutely. But Dale, I could go on for 3 hours in here. But
me too. That's it.
I know, yeah. But we have come to the end of our podcast.
I thought we've just got warmed up.
No,
we just got started. It's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the introduction done. Right. Yeah. Where's the juicy stuff coming? Yeah.
We'll have to get you back for another chat, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was brilliant. Like I said, I could have gone on and on and on. But really appreciate you talking to us. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
So Instagram's probably my most active, so just look for The Medicinal Chef or just come straight to my website, which is dalepinnock.com.
Okay,
nice
and if people want to learn a bit more from you, can they do that?
Yeah, so it's a program that I'm launching, which is called The Metabolic Fix, which is an online program all about the things that I've talked about, getting your metabolic health back in check. You're going to lose weight. Your blood pressure is going to improve. Your cholesterol level is going to improve. Your cognitive function is going to improve. Everything is going to start firing on all cylinders much, much better. It's super simple, but you've got to put in the work.
Well, you do have to put in the work, but listen.
Yeah, and you'll have me there to guide you through it and all the rest of it, but you take the stuff on, your world will change.
The best money you could ever spend.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that. Fucking hell, you're going to look great. You're going to feel better. You're going to be firing on all cylinders. And it is the difference between going through life kind of on that level or going through life on that level.
Yeah,
and it's not an expense. It is an investment. I can fully recommend doing the course. It's incredible. So thanks so much for talking to us. It was a pleasure. And I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, we've still got loads of things to tick off the list. So
thank you very much.